All right, Ben, thank you for joining the show, man.
Glad to be here, man. Awesome.
Yep. Had to leap back up on camera there real quick as
I was
my
gonna say, like, popped in out of nowhere.
something was ringing on my iPad.
Dude, I haven't been on this show before. I was like, is that part of the shtick here? Like,
No,
hello.
we don't bounce around. Well, Ben, I'm excited to have you on the show because you bring a very different background from a lot of our guests. We use Job Nimbus at my partner's company, Rain Tight General Contracting. So we're big fans of Job Nimbus. But
Awesome.
the reason I was excited to bring you on board is because you have a really unique background with companies that you've started, companies you've grown, companies you've sold. You know what it's like to be a small business owner. You know what it's like to deal with struggles of sales, operations, finance, growing a team. And you know what it's like to work with thousands of general contractors and roofers. So I just thought this would be a great time to dig in and talk about some of the fundamentals, what you guys have learned over the years of working with thousands of contractors, what works, and we're going to dive into that. So before we get into all that, I'd kind of like to give you a chance just to share your background story. You're the CEO and co-founder of Job Nimbus, but let's kind of go back and share your story and how you got here.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a couple things that are interesting. It's kind of weird to talk about yourself, but interesting about me in particular. I grew up in the Seattle area. I went to the University of Washington. I got so into computers, even though I got a business degree there. I got a second degree in computer science because I was really, really interested in programming and trying to build great software. Of course, Seattle at the time, Microsoft and everybody, like big software area, still is, Amazon up there or anything like that. And then right out of school, this is a whole separate story that would take me 15 minutes to tell. It's really fun, so maybe we can do that another time. But through a long series of events, I ended up entering a business plan competition at UW. And the idea that we had for that ended up spinning out of UW. And I started that company. It was my first company. It's called Venify. And Venify actually just got bought in December for 1.15 billion. So it was a huge success, but it took years and years and years, a lot of pain and suffering to get that company where it was, which is always the case. It's never easy, right? I'm in through a lot of other companies, and actually Job Nimbus is my 10th 10 company I've ever started. And I started with two partners, Nick and Jason. And we were trying to solve the problem of like, how do we bring great contracting software or great software to contracting? Because when we came into this market, the software absolutely sucked. It was terrible. And we said that we can do it better. We're software guys. We may not be contractors, but we're really good at software. We can solve this problem. We can make it a completely new way of doing things. So we started back in 2012, and actually I just met a couple of roofers, actually. That's how I got started. And I heard about their problems and saw what they were using and said, no, this is terrible. We can do better. And we had a new version out. I don't know, in 6 months, we had built something that was kind of doing some cool stuff, and they were using it. And within a year, people were going, hey, we'll pay for this. This is awesome. And so we launched the company and started growing like massively. About 2014 is really when we started taking off.
Man,
So
that's awesome.
a lot of things happened along there, but that's probably the quick version of it.
Yep. And since then, I know you guys have you've made a lot of changes over the years. I mean, we're going into that was around 2013 or so. This is being recorded in 2021. I'm sure after working with, I'm sure you guys had milestones like, hey, we're up to 100 customers. Oh, we're up to 1,000 customers.
We actually had a dinner. This is such a fun thing. We actually had a dinner the night that we hit 100 customers. That was such a big deal. I mean, we're so much bigger than that now, but at the time that was incredible to hit that milestone. So yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
we didn't even have enough money for the company to pay for the meal, so we paid out of our own pocket. That's how it goes,
awesome.
right?
See, I just think that's great though, because owning a general contracting or roofing company, you are growing a small business. And I like what you said. It's never easy. It's not like you decide, you know what, I'm going to break off on my own. I've got an idea. I'm passionate about it. I'm going to do this thing. It's not like life just rolls the red carpet out for you. And I think some guys look from afar and they see the guy down the street with 15 sales guys and a $70,000 truck that's lifted with big tires, and they think, man, why is it so easy for that guy? But it's never easy. So what I'd like to is kind of discuss what you and I talked about, where after working with thousands of customers like you guys have, I'm sure you've seen the same things over and over and over again that have kept companies from growing and sustaining that success. And I'm sure you've also seen the same things over and over again that have really enabled companies to grow and sustain that success. So we kind of wanted to like distill it down to the fundamentals. And I know you could speak to that. So let's get into that. What would you say are the fundamentals of growing a successful business?
Okay, I'll get back to that. I want to just mention one other thing first. I am an entrepreneur, right? And so are you. And I think these are the heroes of our society. The people that are creating businesses are doing, I think, some of the most good in the world right now. You're creating great jobs. I love contracting because you're doing things that help people. There are so many ways in this world to make money. I want to make money doing something good that actually makes the world a better place. And contractors do that. I love entrepreneurs. I feel a kinship with them. And I really, truly believe it's sort of like almost a charity in some ways. Being an entrepreneur is giving back. It is one of the best things you can do. So I love our customers. I think they're heroes. I think anybody in contracting is a hero. I love entrepreneurs. And these are like the real people that make the country work. So that I have a real kinship with that. And so I think a lot about how do you run a business the right way? Like, what should you be doing? And if you want to just distill down business to three things, I think it's your market, it's your team, and it's your product. And if you have those things right, you can win in any market against any competitor. If you have any one of those things off, you're going to be maybe okay, but you'll never be the true success you want to be. And if you have two of those things wrong, you're going out of business soon.
No, that's really good. And I think you bring kind of a unique, to back up. Number one, I really appreciate you calling out like the noble calling of the entrepreneur, because after we had like a minute left on our call the other day, and you're like, hey, I just want to say this real quick. I was fired up after I got off our call. And that's rare. Yes. I mean, it's rare that I get off the call with somebody and I'm like, man, that was awesome. And I'm not telling you that to like pump you up or blow smoke. I mean, I was genuinely enthusiastic after that call, and I went home and talked to my wife about it. And I was like, you know what we're doing as entrepreneurs, I mean, we really are enabling families to make better lives. We're enabling, like we're doing all these things that genuinely make an impact on society. So I'm glad you took a minute to call that out, because I can get a little laser focused on our talking points or whatever. But
I think it colors the whole thing. Why even do it in the first place, right? Like there's a real why to this, and it really matters,
Yeah, totally. So then digging into once you get that idea, whether it's you starts out with the vision of you providing for your family, changing the trajectory of your financial history, whatever it might be, you start off and you're basically saying, well, you got to make sure that you hit the target in these three areas: market, team, and product. So what do you mean by market? That's a broad term that can mean a lot of different things.
This is actually the hardest of the three to understand for people, especially in contracting, because they don't think this way. But in software, if you go and try to raise venture capital, the first thing they ask you is, what's your TAM, T-A-M? And that's total addressable market. They want to hear a big number there, because that tells them how much headroom you have to go before you hit the wall and you can't really grow anymore. And so like for us, it's like if we're targeting, let's say, roofing contractors, we'd say, well, what is our total addressable market? If we got every single contractor that was roofer in America to use Job Nimbus, what would be the total amount of revenue we could? I dropped for a second. Am I back now?
That's okay. I heard you at the total addressable market.
Okay. So if you're looking at that, so for a contractor, you're looking at it more from the standpoint of saying, okay, if I'm working in the greater, let's just take Seattle or something, Seattle area, how many roofs actually need to get redone every year if I'm a roofer? and what's the average amount of money that we make per roof, average contract value that we get. That's the ACV. And you add all that up, and that will tell you over time, let's say over the next 10 years, what your total addressable market is. You can get more complicated with it. I just want to keep it really simple. But if you're in a market that can't go very far, in other words, you add up the numbers and you go, gosh, even if we get every single roof in this town, we're going to be at 1.2 million. And my goal is to get to 20 million in 2 years. Ain't going to work. So you've got to figure out, you've either got to expand your market, you got to move to a new market, or you've got to think of a way to sell more or do more things. So you see a lot of guys well, let's get into siding and gutters and windows and doors and decking, so I can expand the amount of ACV I have, average contract value, which then make my TAM bigger, because I really want to be a $20 million roofer within 5 years or something like that. So you got to do the math backwards to say, is it even worth doing this, or am I even going to hit my goal? There's a lot of other things to market, but it's got to start with TAM.
That's so good.
Sorry. Okay. Do you have any questions on that? I'll go further than that.
So it sounds no, this is really good. So it sounds like let's say you're in a small market. I'm thinking, let's address the elephant in the room, which is, I think there may be some guys listening to this that are maybe in a smaller market, but they've been in business for 10 years. It's like, well, what am I going to do? Uproot, move to a different city? Yep. No, but I think you address that. You can either expand into other markets or you expand your offering. So I feel like if you're in a really big market, like we're in Dallas, Texas,
yep,
we can get super niche and only offer one thing, right?
And get really
and be really good at it. But if I'm in a much smaller market, I can't be so narrow. I've got to offer more. I've got to broaden my offering, like you mentioned, whether it's gutters, solar, etc.
That's right. And you can go really big over time. You might get into commercial, and you might get into general construction, and you might do new construction. You can keep expanding for whatever your goal is. So one of these things, Dylan, it makes you think first, well, then wait a minute, what is my goal? And if your goal was to get into this company and just make a lot of money, it's probably not going to go it's not going to be the longevity you want. You've got to have something more than that, right? And making a lot of money is not a goal. A goal is, we want to be the best contractor in this area, and we're going to define that by being worth, the TAM is 50 million. We're going to get 20 million of that over the next 2 years. And here's how we're going to do it. And you work backwards into that. That's a goal. You know when you hit it or not. So you've got to actually be goal-minded and mission-driven as a company. It's super important in terms of how you attack your market.
Okay, so let's address that for a minute, just because I think most people listening to this, obviously you need to be successful.
Yep.
To keep your company afloat, to pay your employees, to provide for their families, to provide for yourself. You want to make money. We all want to make good money. We all want to build wealth for the options that provides for our families, even for those of us that are generous and want to give. I talked to one contractor last week, and they have a giving goal, not a revenue goal.
That's cool.
But the giving goal informs their revenue target. So since they want to give, whether it's 500,000 away that year, that means they need to make so many million in top line revenue, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But for guys, you said that's not enough. Now, some people are thinking, well, yeah, that's easy for the CEO of Job Nimbus to say. But
yeah, that's true, right?
You know as well as I do that when you make as much money as you thought you wanted to make, and you think it's going to be this moment of euphoria and your life is going to change, not a lot changes. Mm-hmm. And some of the wealthiest guys I know in Dallas, I was a fundraiser for years for a large nonprofit, and I got to know some of the wealthiest people in Dallas. And there's a lot of wealth here. And a lot of these people that I got to know really, really well admitted that, yeah, well, we're going to give you guys $100,000. And in addition to that, just so you know, that's what we're excited about, is what that 100,000 can do, whether it's building orphanages or whatever. It's not about having a 30,000 foot square home, because that's really exciting for about the first year. And then after a while, it kind of sucks to pay the taxes on it, to deal with security issues, to get called on constantly by fundraisers, whatever it might be. And my personal mentor is a wealthy individual. And I've heard him say that it's just not what if the money is all it's about, it's going to fall flat. That is not going to fuel your fire long term.
Let me tell you why. So I totally agree with this. You've got the situation that to get this business to where you want it to go, you're going to have to put in your heart and your soul. And it's going to take massive hours, and it's going to take massive stress, right? Like entrepreneurs go through some of the highest amount of stress because they're laying it all on the line, high risk people, right? So to do that, if you are doing that just for the dollar, you will run out of steam. I have done this. I have made the mistake of chasing the money, and it's hollow. There's nothing there, right? So then I started saying, well, wait a minute. What am I really doing this for? And I found out what I really care about is about helping build businesses in America, helping build up employees, creating a wealth for my employees, like getting the company to a place where many people participate, doing good in the community. These are the things that give meaning to life. And also solving really hard problems is very meaningful for us. Like we're constantly trying to push ourselves to solve the hardest problems and do hard things that a lot of the people wouldn't even consider doing here. That gives meaning and spice to life. And it's not hollow, but you have to say, well, wait, I got to make money though. Otherwise this is pointless. And I would say, here's how I put that together. I can't think of a better way to know if you're hitting your mission than by revenue. And you might think that's crazy. You might say, well, wait, you're back to just saying it's money. No. To get the revenue goals you want, you've got to wow customers. You've got to be the best in your market. You've got to give customers everything they hoped that they were getting from you. And you've got to be worth every dollar that you're charging. So the only way to hit your revenue goals is to basically do your company mission. It's a great metric to follow. But what you do with your employees and what you do with yourself is you say, I don't care about the money. I care about the impact so that when I look at that revenue number, look, the money will just come if you do this right. Look at the revenue number as impact. Am I achieving my company mission? It's revenue that tells you if you're doing that or not.
That's so good. Yeah, that's a great breakdown. It's true because I'm thinking about yesterday. We just Rain Tight General Contracting put a roof on a house for a guy, and he just had no concept of how the insurance process worked. Long story short, we sent in a supplement. His claim almost tripled because of internal damage to the home because of a leak. At the end of the whole process, he was so astounded that the insurance company wasn't there to help him. And, he's been with the same company for, I think, 30 years.
Yeah.
And so he was so astounded in that short amount of time since about a couple of weeks ago to yesterday, he's already referred us to 5 people, all in Highland Park, which is an affluent neighborhood in Dallas.
Yep. So
I was up on another roof yesterday, and then another one later this week. So I think that's the deal is that's our goal is impact, right? Like we want to help this guy. And so since that's the focus, right? It turns into more money. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah. But I haven't heard anybody really kind of break it down like that. That's so getting into the market. What's the best advice you would give to some guys that feel like they maybe hit the ceiling in their market? They're in a decent market, but like what if you had 60 seconds to say, okay, like just here's the best advice I can give you that'll move the needle this year?
Yeah. 2 things that I've put there, brand and targeting. And brand, I mean, thinking about who you are, what you offer, and how you stand out. And, every guy next door can put on a roof, maybe similar or whatever. What's going to make you the X factor? And it really probably comes down to your quality, your reputation, how professional you come off. If your guy shows up and he's not in logo branded gear and he doesn't have a truck that's wrapped, like I'm not buying from him, So come across professional. You make sure you've got a logo that doesn't look like it was made in 1991, right? You've got a website. I can't tell you how many customers I see that I go and they have a GoDaddy landing page. They don't even have a website and they're using a Gmail email address. It just sounds like fly by night. It doesn't sound like this is the company I want to work with long term. And that will drive value. You'll be able to charge more because you're giving more. There's more trust there too. and you're going to give more value. So that's the brand side of thing. And then the targeting is to say, who do we work with? Who gives us the best reviews? Who just absolutely loves us? And it might be income range. It might be demographics. It might be geolocated area. Who gives us the most referrals? That's your target. Figure out who those people are and market to those people. We'll get really focused, like even say no to jobs that aren't those people, so that you can own that brand and own that target market. It sounds simple, but that's actually how every single business that's succeeded that I've done has worked it.
That's good. Yeah, you got to really clarify who your ideal customer is and revisit that, because it's one of those things where I think it's easy for, a lot of people that listen to this own roofing and GC companies. That's who we cater to. So I think a lot of guys and gals listening to this may think, well, I know our target audience, but a lot of your people may not. And we could get into something a little different there, but communicating that and the communication chain that takes place, it's so easy when you're the leader. You're pulling from so much data when you make a decision or when you communicate something, and the people that work for you, especially new hires, are pulling on so much less data. So your decisions, the things that are simple to you or the concepts that are simple to you, they are new to them or more complex to them. And so this whole idea of market, it really needs to be revisited on even a quarterly basis to make sure. Yep.
A lot of people take it for granted. Oh, well, we'll just sell in our city. They don't think about targeting. They don't think about who they're going after. They don't think about who they're working with that's working well. And if you say, I've heard this a lot of times, like, oh, I really want to get into commercial. That is not a plan. That's like a thought. The plan would be, well, do we know how to actually run a commercial job? Do we know how to sell the commercial? It's a totally different thing than residential. Do we know how to get into the network to even get to those things? Do we know which types of commercial buildings work better for us? Can we even put on this type of roof or whatever, right? So you start really breaking it down. You could whiteboard this out. It doesn't take a lot of time. In a few hours with your team, you're probably going to have some circles that say, that's our target. And then you start expanding. As you get good at one target, now you start expanding out, and that helps you get to your goal. But if you're not focused, if you say, well, no, we work with everybody. We can do any roof. It will not work long-term. You'll never hit the growth rates that the other guys are hitting.
That's good stuff. No, that's really good. So let's go then. I think there's some real gold nuggets there on market for those listening. I think the next thing is team. What do you mean by team?
Yeah. This is one of the actually hardest ones for people. It's easy to understand. It's hard to implement. I mean, there's a whole struggle across the U.S. right now in trying to get talent for actually laborers. And also, I've seen a massive vacuum in this industry of leadership. There's not that many people that know how to people wrangle and actually be a successful leadership executive, whatever you want to call it, at these companies. So how do you find these people? How do you set it up? There's a whole aspect of this of hiring. I've met several people who said, the way we hired this guy was, could I have a beer with him? Yeah, let's get him. That's not effective. That's not going to work. Do you have a training plan after they are hired? Let's say you get the right person, then are you training them, right? And then there's the whole thing of how do you build out a management team? Now, all of this, before you even get to all those tactical things, has to start with your company values. And I know this is sort of a bad word for some people because they've been in companies that didn't follow the values and they thought they're total BS. I get that completely. I've been in the same places I've worked. I'm like, this is total crap. They give me a list of values. They don't even follow any of the stuff. They don't even talk about it. I can't even remember any of them. There's too many of them. And then I've heard the other side of the coin where they get so obsessive over it that they don't think about why they even have those values. So you've got to split the middle on this, but you can't ignore it. I am actually, I got to be completely honest. My first few companies, I said, values, get that crap out of my face, man. It's all about execution, And now I'm 100% the other way to you start with the values. Everything you do is based on the values. That's how you build the long-term longevity of the company. And that's how you find the right team members. And people want to come and work at a place that gives them meaning, that matters, that you're doing something that has impact. And it starts with values. Like, I want to work for a mission-driven, value-driven company every day.
That's good. Because I'm sure you have, and I have too. I've worked for employers where there wasn't an emphasis on any values, and so there's no real heart behind what's being done other than let's crush it, right?
Yep.
And so if there's
that's our number one value. Make money.
Yeah, and if there's no other value other than the grind, after a while, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to make good money if I hit my target this quarter or whatever it might be. But when you combine that with a great mission, there's a great book called Visioneering by Andy Stanley.
I love it.
And he actually unpacks the book of Nehemiah from the Bible. But in the introduction to the book, he says vision and mission is critical. And here's why. And he says it's the difference between people just blindly packing bags of sand on the beach because it's their duty and that's what they were told to do, versus people building a dike to save a city. Mm-hmm. One has a mission behind it and values behind it, and the other is just the task is the same and the outcome is the same. But when people know the reason why, that there's something bigger than me, there's something more important than me, there's something worth getting up early, getting a little stressed out sometimes, working a little late sometimes for, and it's not just me collecting a check. So I think it's great that you're calling that out, that the values are the key. And, in our roofing CEO groups, it's part of the EOS process we go through. Yep. And the question is, what are your core values? And we recommend 3 to 7, and 7 is the max. Because 5. Like you said, if you've got 10 of them, people can't remember all that. You really can't promote it. It's difficult to use in your training, your onboarding, your rewarding. Yeah. So you guys have 5. So I'm just curious, what are the 5 core values of Job Nimbus?
Okay. And this goes back to our mission.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, dude, don't worry about that. I got it. Like I said, this is sort of like something I'm obsessed with. All right, it goes back to our mission. Our mission is to make contractors heroes. And internally, we're trying to make our employees heroes. Like every day, I'm like, you're here and you're kind of like starting with us. Maybe you're Luke Skywalker on the farm. By the time you get done, you're going to be a Jedi, dude. And we are going to get you to the next path in your career. That's why you want to work here, because we care and we actually going to get you there. For our customers, it's like, look, you're running Luke Skywalker, you're running little moisture evaporators. By the time you get done, you're going to be the Jedi Master in this contracting industry. And every single homeowner is going to say, that was the best contractor I ever worked with my entire life, right? That's our mission. So if you look at that and say, well, what would a hero look like? We name 5 things that we think really define a hero in our society today. So number 1, self-driven. And that's really where it starts here. You've got to be proactive at Job Nimbus. You've got to be self-driven. If you are waiting around for things to happen, you will not like it here. You want to be on it before it's even a problem. You've already thought ahead of it and you're going to try to solve it. Number 2, because sometimes self-driven sounds a little bit like selfish. We have number 2 is team committed. It's not all on you. It's the team that wins, and you're helpful to your team. You're reliable, but nobody wants a team member that's not self-driven. So it's got to start there, right? Number 3 is proactive learning. You have to be learning all the time. The companies that learn the fastest win the fastest. And that's true across any industry. If you're leveling up your competition because you're learning more and you've got a feedback loop and you're figuring out things faster, you're going to wreck it. You're going to destroy everybody else out there. Number 4 is deliver customer value. I don't want you just to get stuff done. We don't do that here. We get stuff done for customers, and not just anything. We get value done for customers. And if you haven't gone here a day without delivering customer value, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, because that's all that matters in the end. And then the final one is kind of fun. It's life balance. And we think of this kind of like, well, a superhero has 2 sides. Like there's Clark Kent and there's Superman. And yeah, sure, when you're at the company, you're Superman. And we're making you Superman. You got to save the day all the time. But when you're at home, you're Clark Kent, and you got to have a life. And there's both sides. You're a reporter, and you've got Lois Lane as your girlfriend, and you've got to make that work. And as much as I absolutely love what we're doing and think it's so important, I would never want it to come in the way of my family or my friends or my relationships. So I've got to make sure I balance that with what I'm doing here at Job Nimbus.
That's so good. So I think that's a good challenge to anybody watching or listening to this. What are the core values of your company? Are they something that you as the leader the key executive or the owner are passionate about? Is it something that you guys use in training? Is it something you use in rewarding? Do you rate your employees not just on their financial performance, but on how well they embody your core values? I think there's a lot to think about here, because that's what you guys have seen keeps a cohesive team. And so as you get into that, I got to ask, a lot of guys say, yeah, well, I'd love to have some great teammates that fit our culture, et cetera. But a lot of guys really struggle with finding great talent, finding great people. So what's one piece of advice you have for that hiring process?
Yeah. So we actually designed a series of questions that the first stage for us is, I got to plug a book here. Have you read WHO by Jeff Smart? Oh
No.
my gosh, dude, this is the best book I've ever read on hiring in my life. I read it a few years back, and I thought I knew hiring, and then I read that book and said, oh, I need to level up even more. So we actually use the WHO methodology across the whole company right now. And it starts with a 30-minute screening interview where you screen for values and culture first. Because look, skills, fine. If you're self-driven, if you're a proactive learner, you're going to learn it anyways. I'm looking for culture and values match first, because then I know I can do anything with you together. We're on the same team, united in the same goal. But we actually have like certain questions that flush things out. For instance, like with a self-driven person, we're going to ask questions like, on your last team, how did you rank? Oh, I don't know. They didn't really rank me. Really? You don't have any idea? Were you the best, the worst? I mean, well, I guess, what would your boss say? Well, I guess they'd tell me they're number 2. What was your boss's name? Oh, Bob Sampson. How do you spell that? And you ask them how to spell it, even if it's Smith, because you want them to think, oh crap, they're going to ask that guy, so I better be honest about it, right? And then you say, well, why did he give you that rating? Why would he say you're number 2? And so if I talk to Bob, he'd confirm this. You say these types of things, and it gets that person very, very open and honest. Well, honestly, yeah, it's maybe a 3, and it's because of this, and we had this run in, and you'll flush out things. You're like, okay, I don't want to work with that person. Or you'll say, oh, I'm loving this. This is totally our guy, right? Or our girl. So as we go along, we have little questions that like dial in. Okay, that's self-driven. That's team committed. They don't even know it. We're just asking regular interview questions, but we actually have a scorecard, and it has a 1 to 20 for each of those things. And we score them at the end, and we usually have 2 people at least on the interview. And if they don't score an 85 or higher on the culture and values, they don't move forward. They're like, we only want top tier value people. But if they move forward to that, now we move into a skill interview next. And then there's usually a third follow-up skill interview that kind of deep dives and talks a lot about, what do you want to do with your career? Where are you trying to go? Because we got to make sure that after there's a value match and a skill match, the third thing you got to get is a seat match. And what I mean by that is, does that person want to do the job that you're going to hire them for? Are they actually good at what that job is? And is it something the company needs right now? And you can use that for anybody. If somebody's not working out in your organization, first question is, do they have our values? If they do, then the second thing, can they do the skills that they're doing right now? Well, that's a seat question. And that's when you start saying, look, I'll find a seat for somebody who has our values, because I want to keep those people. But if they don't have our values, like, gone. Like, I'm sorry that you won't like it here. This isn't you. It's like, we want people that are us, right? If they do have our values, then we ask the seat question. We figure out the right seat that uses their God-given talents.
That is so good. We one of the things we call it is right people, right seats. And yeah, I love how you guys, your interview process addresses, okay, are you the right person? Check. Now what's the right seat to put you in? Check. And that's so good, because I think a lot of people hire based on one of those. It's like, hey, you're the right person. We'll find a place for you. Okay, you're going to be our bookkeeper. No experience in bookkeeping, yeah, right? Bad idea. Bad idea. Yeah, but we go to church together, and they watch our kids, and so-and-so is a cousin of so-and-so. It's just like, please stop. Just save everybody the time and the pain. Or they hire somebody, most often they're a right fit for the seat, but they're not the right person. So you've got some very capable sales guy, can crush it. He's just a monster out there closing deals like nobody's business. alienates everybody else in the company.
Yep, that's right.
Because he doesn't line up with the core values, lacks humility, or whatever it might be. And so you got the wrong person in the right seat. And you know, you hear about this a lot. And then the business owner has to deal with, well, what the heck do I do now? I mean, this guy's making me 500 grand a year, $1 million a year. What am I supposed to do? Cut him loose.
It's honestly one of the hardest things I've had to make this call too. I'm like, dang it, this is my top performer. But this person is wrecking our culture and his team hates him. I'm going to have to lay this guy off. And it's going to hurt everybody in the whole company because he's bringing in the revenue right now. And every time I held off on that, and this is fun. When I'm in a group, I'll like sometimes say, how many people waited too long to fire somebody? And everybody's hand goes up in the entire room, right? And how many people fired somebody too early? Almost never do you see a hand go up, maybe one, you know, because you always want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But if it's not a values match and a culture match, every time that I made the move, it was better. And actually everybody got better faster. You know, if I kept it the way it was, everybody was down here. There was one top performer and the culture was terrible. So my personal experience is it always works to get rid of people that aren't your values and go all in on people that have your values in the right seats.
That's good. So I think my challenge to those watching and listening to this would be on a scale of 1 to 5, based on how Ben broke down market. Where are you at? I mean, 1 being the least amount of strength, and 5 being the strongest, as far as how well are you dialed into your market on a scale of 1 to 5. And then team, even more importantly, because a great team can go do great things even in a small market, but a crappy team cannot. Mm-hmm. So on a scale of 1 to 5, based on what Ben just unpacked, how strong is your team? You know, that's something to think about. Are you guys united around great core values? Do you have the right people in the right seats? Are you building a positive culture? Is it built on something better than let's just hit these revenue targets? So this is great stuff. So now we're rounding the corner into the third fundamental that you and I discussed, and you said that's product. And I'm really looking forward to this, because a lot of people listening to this thinking, well, yeah, our product is a roof.
Yep. And in some ways that's true at the most basic level, but everybody's got that same product. So your real product is your quality, your efficiency, your culture. They're buying your values. That's why we started with this stuff, because they're buying that. You know, I want to work with somebody. There's 2 things I always think about. Like, I talk to the sales team a lot and say, I want to buy from somebody who I like. That's pretty obvious. I think a lot of people know that. What people don't think of as much about, I want to buy from somebody who likes me. And that makes me think of relationship and connection. Like, do they care about me? Do they want me to be successful? Like, and I was talking to a guy the other day, one of our customers, and he said, I make everybody ask this question before they call me. If it was my home, what would I do? And half the time they don't call me anymore because they say, yeah, should we tear this off or not? Yeah, do it. Should we fix this or not? Do it. Because if it was your home, you would do it, and you'd want that contractor to do it. And that shows through. That homeowner is going to give an amazing review, is going to be much more likely to work with you in the future and recommend you than somebody that you just took the money and run on. So
that's great.
Products, quality, efficiency, that sort of thing. Sorry, go ahead. I have another thing I want to share with you about that too, but.
No, let's just keep going on product. I mean, what differentiates you? If you own a roofing company, you got 4 or 5 sales guys, and you're putting on a GAF roof or a Owens Corning roof or whatever it might be, and so is your competitor. How do you differentiate your product?
Yeah. So professionalism is the next thing. I want to work for somebody that looks like they're a legit company, not a bunch of guys who just got up, rolled out of bed and showed up at your house, you know, terrifying. Like, I want them in company logo. I want them, and this is one that I don't think a lot of people think about. I think a lot of people are in repair remodel, right? And so think about it being like a doctor. Somebody's got a problem in their body, right? Like, I've got cancer or whatever. Are you going to hire a doctor who has no certifications or training and put him in charge of saving your life? Or are you going to hire the best person in the industry that has every single certification, that has the right insurance in place, that has been training and building on this, that has years of experience, or at least has a background that shows you that they're professional and know what they're doing? And then actually can talk intelligently at a detail. That's the other thing. I notice a lot of times people's estimates say one line, price $12,438. Like, well, what does that mean? No, I want you to tell me, what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to come in, we're going to tear off the roof. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. Oh, like walk me through what it's like to work with you guys. What does it feel like? And you can let your culture and values come through that. And then we're going to check in with you. And by the way, we're going to text you about this. We're going to send an email. By the way, Job Nimbus does a lot of this stuff for you, but you can do it on your own too, right? And now you're painting the picture. You're visioning out for that homeowner what it's like, and you're selling more than just the GAF roof. You're selling the experience.
That's great. So you just said a mouthful right there. You're selling the experience. And when that's something we found too with, my role is primarily Limitless. I'm super passionate about our roofing CEO groups, but I got into this industry selling roofs for my buddy who owns Raintight. And so I'll still, if we have a friend or family member that says, hey, can you come look at our roof? Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to pass up the chance for that experience or for that revenue. And so we'll do that. But that's the deal, is the experience. And what I found is, coming into this industry from the outside, like I did, there is a massive lack of professionalism. I'm just calling it like it is. I'm not trying to be critical. There's just a massive lack of professionalism that you get really more the more, I was in healthcare doing consulting and software and stuff like that. And our customer was
like Stone Age over there half the time, right?
Yeah, with the doctors it is.
Yes.
But if there's a hospital administrator or a chief technology officer, it's different. They expect a lot.
That's right.
They expect a lot. And so when I got into roofing with my buddy Miller, I was like, well, what's your communication process like? Well, what's this process like? Well, what's that look like? And we're doing these roofing jobs and stuff like that. And then we got into Limitless and started working with owners roofing companies. And I just saw a big lack of communication, a lack of professionalism. Like you said, even the email thing, using a personal email, a lack of communicating a process. But the thing is there's guys out there that are doing it really, really well. And we look at them and go, wow, like I just saw, on the American Contractor show, Cornerstone Construction sold. I think they were up to 7 or 8 locations at the time or whatever. But they've done that really well. They've got a process. They've got a great onboarding strategy. They got a great training strategy. They have a sales target for every location. They have a process. We did an interview with their chief operations officer, and they call it the race to 15. They hire 15 sales guys as fast as they can. They try to make them all at least $1 million a year producers. They have this very professional take on the roofing business. And so just going back to what you said about that experience, I think that's one thing they nailed, was that experience. So what would you say if you, as you've looked in on thousands of owners of roofing companies, and your companies work with thousands of owners of roofing companies and teams and salespeople, what would you say is the biggest thing you tend to see missing, or the big problem you see that needs to be addressed?
So this is the story over and over again that I run into. Everybody gets going with their company, and they usually have several months or years of success and growth. And then somewhere between the $750,000 and $4 million range, they hit a flat line, and a lot of them start going backwards. Like, oh, we only did 3.5 instead of 4 this year. Yeah. And it's because you can do a lot of things wrong. And I always say revenue covers a multitude of sins. It makes you look like you're better than you are until it doesn't, until it dries up. But you can do a lot of things and get to $1 million as a contractor, or $2 million as a contractor. Then the wheels come off. And the reason for that is it's a scale problem. one, five, four people can get you to 1 million, and you can make it work by everybody working 80 hours a week and being on their phones from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m., including weekends, and putting out fires, and you can get there. It's a terrible quality of life. And that's another thing we need to talk about in this industry. Like, it's time to get back to life balance, I think, but that starts with having processes in place. And so, we talk a lot about this because we say, like, Job Nimbus, it's not some magic thing. I think it's great software, but it forces you to think about your business processes and actually put processes in place for everything. And suddenly it's like rocket fuel because of that. Now, you can put those processes in place without Job Nimbus, but that's the other thing. I see a lot of people say, well, we will just do whatever and try to make it work. And then not realizing that you're standing out there in front of a homeowner, to the professionalism comment, and you're writing on a piece of paper to make an estimate. And that homeowner's getting another estimate later from a guy who's got his tablet open, is doing all digital, and sends you a nice proposal. Who are you going to buy from? Give me a break. You're going to go with the guy that looks like he's technologically advanced. The company's going to have a better experience. The homeowner's going to know it, right? So you need to get some software tools in place. That's one way you can get your processes, but really you need to think about your workflow first, and just think about your process and start working on it.
That's good. So I think the key takeaway from that is, what's the best way you could do what you do? Even though you're offering something that other companies offer, what's the best way you can give the best experience to the customer? And that's why I ask you, what's your best advice for market? What's your best advice on team? I mean, we want to meet with you and get some of the best advice after working with thousands of companies in this space. And I think you guys, watching and listening, have gotten some great nuggets of gold here. So after all this, Ben, I mean, what would be your parting piece of advice? We really unpacked market, team, and product. What would be a parting piece of advice you have for anybody listening to this? And you're allowed to say, try Job Nimbus.
Well, I don't think that's actually, if you think about our mission, I want to do whatever's right for the contractor. We think that we're making a big impact there. And we think that people naturally come to us. But again, it's like, hopefully listening to me today, if you were wondering about us, you'd say, what company do I want to work with? What kind of vendor would I even want? Well, I want a company like that cares about their customers, that's super mission driven, that's their value is, or their actual mission is to make contractors heroes. And hopefully you see yourself a little bit in that and say, I think sometimes I meet people and say, well, I'm not a hero. No, you got to think different. You are, dude. You are amazing. It is so hard to be an entrepreneur. I am so honored to work with people like this. I love them. I think they're amazing. It's totally something you can be and you should be attaining. And what do I define as a hero? I mean, honestly, it's like, let's help you hit your life goal, whatever that is. I want to do this or that. Great. Your dreams should come true through your business, not be, as I've heard several people come to us in the past and say, I've been running this thing for several years. Honestly, I'm almost ready to hang it up because it's 24/7. My marriage is a disaster right now, blah, blah, blah. You listen to the whole list and you go, holy crap, dude, that's not worth it. There is a better way. Like, get your life back and get everything back on track. That's really the pitch for the owner, right, of how you do this. But there's one thing that we do a lot here, and I think it would be really valuable for everybody on this listening in to do this. And that's to think about the customer experience and actually whiteboard it out. What does it feel like to be the homeowner working with WeatherTight? And what's it feel like to go through that process? How and think about the emotions that they're going to have when I meet my estimator for the first time. How do I want them to feel when I leave? And focus on that feeling, and then design your process to make that feeling happen. Then the next step, when I finish the roof, this is how I want them to feel. And work through that feeling and emotional journey of the customer. And if you do that, you will be the best contractor in your space because nobody else is thinking that way right now.
Man, that's great. So for everybody watching and listening, I think that's going through Bible college and seminary, and you sit through it, when you're in class, and I feel like this has been kind of a class. When you're in class, you just get this deluge of information, and you think, okay, what am I supposed to walk out of here with? Now I've got more questions than I had when I came in. I think there's one great takeaway from this. Schedule a time, get with your team, and chart out on a whiteboard what is the customer experience like. Start with that, guys. You will be so glad you did. Take some time to work on your business and not just in it, and actually be proactive and chart a bold course for your leadership of where you want to be a year from now, 3 years from now. You'll be so glad you did. And I think this episode, I think, is going to get a lot of replays. We're going to get a lot of feedback on this because you've shared a lot of unique stuff. Or if you've shared some things that are kind of common principles, you've unpacked it in a different way. And Ben didn't ask me to do this, and you guys have not paid for any kind of sponsorship on here for this episode. But I got to tell everybody watching and listening as well, we're using Job Nimbus. We are relatively new at Raintight General Contracting anyway. And we have been really impressed at the level of customer service because we had our onboarding call, and then Dallas got slammed with that ice storm.
Yeah.
And we got water mitigation work. Well, we quickly decided, you know what, we're going to hire a consultant. We're going to learn water mitigation. We're going to use teams from the outside. We're going to do all this stuff. Huge undertaking, right? And we had just started using Job Nimbus. So we're trying to learn a new project management software / CRM. We're trying to learn a new business model. And I told the guys at Job Nimbus, I'm like, because we had to schedule our second training call.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I cannot wait. We need a training call within a couple of days. Is there anybody that can train us? It wasn't like, oh, we don't typically do that. There was none of that. It was like, absolutely, somebody's going to contact you. I got an email. We got hooked up with a guy named Martin. Martin trained us. He stayed on the line with me, and I was stressed. I was like, man, I'm sorry, Martin, but like, here's what we need. We need a work board for water mitigation, the whole workflow. We need this like now. I'm like, when can we meet next? We met I think 2 days later. When can we meet next? We met like a day later. I mean, he just crushed it. And I was blown away because we needed it so bad, and he was so responsive, and he was always positive. So for anybody wondering, I'm just going to, I want to challenge everybody out there, give Job Nimbus a try. There's a reason they're the #1 software for contractors. I think if I'm correct, you guys have about double the market share of AccuLinks.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. Our experience has been awesome. So anyway, Ben, thank you for being on the show, man. We're going to make this is live now. We'll put it up on YouTube in about a week, and we really appreciate you being on here.
Thanks, man. It's good to talk.